has said there will be very little need to police the wearing of face coverings, as he believes the public will comply with the new regulations. But what if they don't? Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined now by the CEO of Galway Chamber, Kenny Deary. Good morning to you, Kenny.
Good morning, Sally-Ann.
Well, I suppose a significant challenge in terms of what's in store for your members on this, Kenny. Have you had any information in terms of how members of Galway Chamber, small retailers, bigger retailers across the county, are supposed to police this?
I think, Sally-Ann, it's going to vary from store to store, the numbers of staff they have, the type of customers they have, the relationship they have with them. And I think there's a different dynamic between city and county as well. Many in the county will have good relationships built up with their customers, and I think you're looking, and I was doing a bit of travelling over the last few days, and in different locations. I was in Longford yesterday, and in one particular large shop, I'd say there was 90% compliance already with the mask wearing. Mm-hmm. And you found yourself, when someone wasn't, nearly looking kind of strangely, thinking, oh gosh, they don't have a mask on.
Yes.
And I think there will be an aspect of community policing, nearly first of all, between different people going in and out. And you hear many conversations as entering stores, people going back to their car to get the mask, people forgetting it, buying one on the way in. So some conversations throughout the country, and indeed throughout the Chamber's network, is if someone doesn't wear a mask, will you ring the guards? But that really it's extreme in two ways. One, it's taking up police time with what's seen in some ways not to be the focus. That they're busy on other matters, and a station couldn't contain getting tens of calls on a daily basis saying Mary or Tommy aren't wearing a mask coming into a shop. So I think there's a campaign. I know within our membership there's a range of collateral being sent out today. It's posters in English and indeed Os Gaeilge as well for around city and county to be displayed on stores. I think for the first few days some businesses have planned to have a staff member back on the door. Welcoming meet and greet, you're welcome, so that it's not a frosty experience. And actually, don't forget your mask, don't forget to sanitize coming in. And, what happened, and in the intro there was reference to it, when you see three counties go backwards last week, mm-hmm. I think that has sent a shockwave through many business owners thinking, God, what happens if that happens to us? So despite the imposition, despite the extra work that it will take, I think many will be motivated to try in their best to get this right this week. And like every change, it'll take a few days. As I say, there broadly has been good compliance, and before it was actually mandated. So I just think we're calling all elected representatives, and I heard some speaking yesterday, just calling on the good grace of people at this stage to please comply with this. You don't want a store owner in a position where, there's a standoff in a doorway. And I think anyone who's trying to defend not wearing one, they're on the back foot, really, Sally-Ann.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kenny, I really feel as well that we had taken the foot off the pedal on this. Like, I would be out and about doing, the weekly shop. I've been trying to keep it to a minimum now, to be honest. But when I went out, I felt it was kind of maybe 70% complying, 30 not. And I felt really that shop owners were afraid to intervene until it stepped up to a mandatory setting, because I suppose A, they don't want the confrontation, and B, some of those businesses, the loss of revenue that they had during the closures, mm-hmm. they were afraid to turn away the business.
Yeah, no, and that's a very fair point, and it's a human reaction. And I do agree with you in terms of a bit of complacency, maybe even with the sanitising on doorways. You need to be reminded, and I found myself being reminded even walking in a door, particularly if you're in and out of a number of shops and you've sanitised 2 or 3 times already, and you're thinking, God, but just it's the habit, and it's just being persistent with it. And you are right, some business owners are delighted to see a customer coming in the door, and the last thing you want to do is pin them to the wall, sanitise them, make sure they have a mask on and whatever else. So it's about striking a balance on it. And I think also there's a responsibility on businesses and their staff as well to, there's certain parameters where they don't need to wear a mask if they're within screened areas, or if they can manage the 2 metres apart. Mm-hmm. But what you'll see in certain places as well, and one business owner who I was quite friendly with, I reminded one of his team last week, who had a mask on, but the visor of the mask was flipped up, which is kind of pointless in many ways. So, I think there's what this is down to is human nature and just humans remembering to be compliant. And we need, the colour yellow at this stage is lost on everyone because every building is obliterated with yellow. So I think the relevance of it is in some way lost. That's why I think the new wave of posters coming out today are probably important just to have on doorways again. There's different styles to them now, and I really think that looking at the cases and looking at the demographic profile of those who are now coming down with the cases, there's a lot of younger people. Now, children under 13 don't need to wear a mask. However, there's an angle now, I know, a campaign with the HSE focusing on teenagers and those in their early 20s who perceive themselves as being healthy and are nearly risk accepting. Sure, if I get it, it's fine. Whereby that's, clearly a bad behaviour because they transfer it to others. So, listen, there's no straightforward answer to this. At least there's a more firm footing for business owners to be able to say, sorry, but this is mandated now and I do need you to wear the mask. But it shouldn't come to that confrontation. I think it's that casual, Kate Míle Fáilte on the doorway, but don't forget to sanitise and have your mask on. If not, we have them for sale here. And I think that's genuinely the move of businesses today, because the last thing they want is announcements like what has impacted Kildare, Laois and Offaly, which, your heart will go out to any of the businesses in those areas after just getting reopened, going back into a lockdown mode and all the implications of that. So hopefully, Sally-Anne, we're going to see considerable compliance. I think the guards certainly will expect, and they do expect, a couple of calls over the initial days, but I just hope that this will be, by the end of the week, we'll be looking back thinking, do you know what, there's broad compliance, and that's healthy.
Yeah, and I can imagine, Kenny, look, at the guards don't want to be known about this. They have more than enough on their plate with, day-to-day policing at this stage, and they're on longer rosters and all that goes with it. There was a question put to me, Kenny, when I was out and about the weekend, and I actually thought it's a good one for you because I didn't know the answer. It was from a staff member in a particular retailer, and they were wearing, one of the plastic visors. Now, they didn't have a mask on, and they were saying, well, from Monday, if you're going into a shop and you're going in with the visor and you don't have a mask on, is the visor good enough, or you need the mask as well?
An interesting question. I don't know the exact answer to it, but you would certainly think the visors seem to have been accepted as a standard in many premises serving food, in many hospitality industries. So on the basis of that, I would think that it would be very hard to prosecute someone for wearing a visor and not having a mask on. I think there are particular challenges, and I wear glasses myself. Mm-hmm. One of the most frustrating bits is with the mask. Actually, your glasses steam up, so there's a certain type of visor that you can wear that the glasses aren't impacted. So no, my gut feeling, and I could stand corrected on it, Sally-Anne, but the gut feeling on that is someone's wearing a visor. They've gone to a fair bit of effort, and they're wearing a headpiece to try and protect those around them. So that should be acceptable.
Is it a resources issue as well for retailers and members of the Galway Chamber, Kenny, in terms of, very early on we saw a lot of staff members were stationed at the front door of various premises to ensure social distancing, not too many numbers within the shop at the same area. I don't see as much of that now, which does worry me, particularly in supermarkets and that kind of thing. Some are better than others. That's always going to be the case. But, it is a resources issue for small businesses where they have to allocate maybe one staff member to be ensuring you have somebody coming in the door with the mask.
Yeah, no, it is. And to be fair, it is a resources issue. And one of the bits, Sally-Anne, that we have been calling for, certainly in our lobbying through Chambers Ireland and with the Department of Business, Enterprise and Innovation, was additional funding. The startup grants in themselves, because they're tied to rates and the amounts in question, just aren't sufficient for the costs that businesses are incurring. Mm-hmm. And we're looking for additional funding support for many businesses. And I think it's the practical thing that you talk to, even about having additional resources on the doorway. Some will say, well, the continuation of the wage subsidy scheme is there and isn't that enough? But actually that's become a little trickier in terms of the restrictions and the rules around it. And I think if we're to do this right, and government knows the cost of businesses not being able to get this right, we're seeing that in the Midlands, and the additional cost to the state that's going to have. So we are calling, and will be again this week, Sally-Anne, looking for additional resources for businesses to try and deliver the range of, I suppose, PPE that they need, the additional processes they have to go through, the additional cleaning, and also something that we in Galway, I think, have been leading out on in collaboration between City Council and the City Partnership and Chamber, and the whole area of Access for All. There's 11,000 people in Galway who have some form of physical, hearing or visual additional needs. So there's a large cohort of people there who, with this announcement again, are going to be a little more fearful in one way of getting it right and coming into town. And I think we do need more staff on doorways to try and cover that wide range of gamut. So you're covering the baseline of, had the person a mask, have they sanitised? There's also a bit of direction needed, depending. Many stores have changed their layout and the direction to facilitate social distancing. So it's easier actually be able to direct the person to exactly where they need to get, because many stores have limits. So the queue is building up out and further down the street. So you're right, there's a whole gamut of issues that need to be dealt with. And that whole having a staff member on the door, actually, I won't say de-risk the process, but it makes it a far more welcoming experience coming into a store, because you're saying, I want to get this, great, do you know what, go down 3 aisles down there on the left and you'll have it. And also it gives you a sense that there's a sense of filtering for people coming in. So you do feel that bit more protected. As I say, from conversations with our businesses, those that are bigger and have more staff have the ability to do that easier. But if you've your 1 or 2 person operation, then it's the owner, he or she behind the till, nearly shouting, and shouting is the wrong word, but that's in essence what you have to do from behind the till, to say, hi, how are you, I'll be with you in a minute, will you put on your mask? It's not the same experience. So they do need extra support, they need extra funding. The Restart grant, as I say, is tied to the rates from the previous years, so the amount that some have got is just the baseline. And albeit welcome, it doesn't make up for 5 months of not being operational.
Sure.
It doesn't make up for all the costs that have had to be incurred in terms of actually reopening your business. And I think that's a huge challenge, Sally-Anne, and something that we're going to continue fighting for ourselves in Galway and through the Chambers Ireland network as well, with other partners.
Okay, Kenny, well, let's get the message out there. I mean, 500 cases detected in Galway to this date. That's what I'm hearing on our news bulletins here this morning on local news. So it certainly hasn't gone away. We need to get that message out there. You know, staff are doing their best, but it's in our own hands now at this stage. We don't want to see a situation like has developed in the Midlands, which we'll be talking about after the next break. But please, just be kind, go along with staff and what they're asking you to do. Everybody's doing their best in this. Let us know what you think about the mandatory wearing of masks. Kenny, do